Mr. Utterson, the lawyer, was a man of rugged countenance that was never lighted by a smile, cold, scanty, and embarrassed in discourse, backward in sentiment, lean, long, dusty, dreary, and yet somehow lovable. He was austere with himself, drank gin when he was alone, to mortify a taste for vintages, and though he enjoyed the theatre, had not crossed the doors of one for 20 years. But he had an approved tolerance for others, sometimes wondering, almost with envy, at the high pressure of spirits involved in their misdeeds, and in any extremity inclined to help rather than to reprove.
I incline to Cain's heresy. I'll let my brother go to the devil in his own way,
he used to say quaintly. His friends were those of his own blood, or those whom he had known the longest. His affections, like ivy, were the growth of time. They implied no aptness in the object. Hence, no doubt, the bond that united him to Mr. Richard Enfield, his distant kinsman, the well-known man about town.
Have you ever remarked that door?
Yeah.
When was that?
Well, it was this way.
All at once I saw two figures, one a little man who was stumping along eastward at a good walk, and the other a girl of maybe 8 or 10, who was running as hard as she was able down a cross street. Well, sir, the two ran into one another, naturally enough, at the corner, and then came the horrible part of the thing, for the man trampled calmly over the girl's body.
We will make such a scandal of this Hyde that your name will stink from one end of London to the other.
Choose to make a capital out of this accident. I'm naturally helpless. No man but wishes to avoid a scene. Name your figure.
Well, we're scooting up to £100 for the child's fee.
And where do you think he carried us, but to that place with the door? The figure was stiff, but the signature was good for more than that, if it was only genuine.
And you don't know if the drawer of the check lives here?
A likely place, isn't it?
There's one point I would like to ask. What's the man with the name who walked over the child?
Hyde.
And you're sure he had a key?
The fellow has the key. He still has it. I saw him use a week ago.
I'm ashamed of my long tongue. Let us make a bargain never to refer to this again.
I shake hands on that, Richard.
An aged and beautiful gentleman drawing near along the lane and advancing to meet him, a certain Mr. Hyde, but he answered never a word. Then all of a sudden he broke out in a great flame of anger, and next moment with ape-like fury he was hailing down a storm of blows, under which the bones were audibly shattered.
Do you recognize this game?
I'm afraid I do. It is that of Dr. Jekyll.
I was born in the year 18-something to a large fortune. When I reached years of reflection and began to look round me, I stood already committed to a profound duplicity of life. With every day, and from both sides of my intelligence, the moral and the intellectual, I thus drew steadily nearer to that truth by whose partial discovery I have been doomed to such a dreadful shipwreck, that man is not truly one, but truly two. I saw that of the two natures that contended in the field of my consciousness, I was radically both. If each, I told myself, could but be housed in separate identities, life would be relieved of all that was unbearable. I not only recognized my natural body for the mere aura and effulgence of certain of the powers that made up my spirit, but managed to compound a drug by which these powers should be dethroned from their supremacy. I hesitated long before I put this theory to the test of practice. I knew well that I risked death, for any drug that so potently controlled and shook the very fortress of identity might by the least scruple of an overdose, or at the least inopportunity in the moment of exhibition, utterly blot out that immaterial tabernacle which I looked to it to change. I purchased at once, from a firm of wholesale chemists, a large quantity of a particular salt which I knew, from my experiments, to be the last ingredient required, and late one accursed night I compounded the elements, watched them boil and smoke together in the glass, and when the ebullition had subsided, with a strong glow of courage, drank off the potion. The most racking pangs succeeded, a grinding in the bones, deadly nausea, and a horror of the spirit that cannot be exceeded at the hour of birth or death. Then these agonies began swiftly to subside, and I came to myself as if out of a great sickness. I knew myself, at the first breath of this new life, to be more wicked, tenfold more wicked, and the thought in that moment braced and delighted me like wine. I saw for the first time the appearance of Edward Hyde. In the beginning, the difficulty had been to throw off the body of Jekyll. It had of late gradually but decidedly transferred itself to the other side. I was slowly losing hold of my original and better self, and becoming slowly incorporated with my second and worse. This, then, is the last time, short of a miracle, that Henry Jekyll can think his own thoughts, or see his own face. Will Hyde die upon the scaffold, or will he find the courage to release himself at the last moment? God knows. I am careless. This is my true hour of death, and what is to follow concerns another than myself. Here then, as I lay down the pen and proceed to seal up my confession, I bring the life of that unhappy Henry Jekyll to an end.